Welcome once again to Agriculture Today from the campus of Kansas State University. Taking up the grain markets once more to start this Friday edition, we bring in grain market economist Dan O'Brien, K-State Research and Extension, along with us from his office in Colby, Northwest Kansas. And we are at no lack of things to talk about this week for sure, Dan. The USDA coming out earlier this week with its first survey-based crop production report, and the numbers were decidedly higher for virtually all the row crops.
They were, but as soon as weather conditions came in, particularly a major storm rolling through Iowa and other states, but particularly Iowa, causing as soon as that happened with quite a bit of crop damage, followed up by a forecast of drier weather for the next couple of weeks. I guess we'd say the market took that into account, but then moved on in its focus. I won't say discounted it, but moved on in its focus to trying to assess the crop damage. And we could talk about what that what that might be and what the amount is, but that was a game changer. So I would not say the report was dead on arrival, but as soon as that storm hit on the 10th, 11th, then the report on the 12th had a completely different, well, the numbers for corn production and probably soybean production, which we're not talking so much about, both of those are quote subject to change. And we've seen that here in the markets since that day, since that quote bearish report came out, have been moving to the higher side. Closed yesterday. D's corn at 338 had been 323, thereabouts, had fallen down quite a bit. Soybeans 899. Well, corn yesterday, D's corn up 11.5 cents, and on the close, November soybeans up 16.5. Even wheat followed suit with probably in sympathy somewhat, and with some decent exports. September up 7.25. That's hard red winter wheat. So the market's perspective has changed, and we have a number of other factors. I think by the time you bring them all together, there are some smaller, I guess, points of positive news to provide some support for the market that bears looking at, that probably keep us from just going into the long, slow slide into harvest from where we're sitting right now.
Now, what you've been referencing here is what they're calling that derecho storm, which strafed Iowa, parts of Illinois, even further east. And the eventual upshot of that isn't fully told, is it? We're still assessing as an industry just how much damage was brought to bear there, right?
Well, that's correct. When you look at the amount of corn that's to be harvested in Iowa this year, projected at, again, the same August 1st dated NASS number, 13.55 million acres. And there's a number that came out from that seems as credible as any, stating that 43% of the crop acreage in Iowa was affected by this. So that's more than a third. That's almost half. So 43% of 13.5 million acres is about 5.8 million acres. I mean, if we use that, and then 5.8 million acres. If it's 10 bushel loss, that's 58 bushels. If it's 100 bushel loss, it's 580 million bushels. Pardon me. So a lot of the trade estimates have come out and have been in the range of 300 to 400 million acres lost. And really, Kansas farmers have seen this also, but not to the scale that's happened over there. So what do you have when you have corn late in a season like this? Has had a big wind in it, and it's bent over in wet fields. Well, the first thing you watch for is to see when things dry out a little bit, does it come back up? And that doesn't mean it's done, if I understand our agronomic friends. But what it probably means, if it stays down, is that you're going to have a long, slow harvest and some wet corn, and hopefully you won't have moldy stuff and all. And so this is it's a wind. It wasn't consistent all everywhere. So that probably some is has more problems than others. That it is interesting that the projected yield for Iowa was 202 bushels per acre. So if they lost 25% of their yield, they'd be at 50 bushels an acre. So we just do the math, 50 bushels per acre times 5.8 million acres. You're 500 million bushels. Now the USDA's U.S. production numbers, I think it came out at 15.287. That's 15.278 billion bushels. When I first saw that, I thought, well, we might as well left it at 15 because that's probably how much crop loss we have, about 300 million bushels. But so if you just use that as a metric, you get back to 15 billion, and anything more than that gets us to 14.8, 14.7, etc. If it's really rough, down to 14.5. And even so, in that supply demand balance sheet for corn, it came in with a projection of record high 2.75 billion bushels. If everything else is the same, ceteris paribus, everything else is assumed the same, and you just lost 500 million bushels of yield out of Iowa, if that came about, then we'd be down to basically 2.25 billion bushels. The total number of bushels in Iowa projected to be 2.7 billion bushels. So to lose a billion bushels, to really get serious about this, to lose a billion bushels and take us from 15.28 down to 14.28. Well, that's we can just do how much does a billion bushels? What's the yield on a billion on 5.8 million acres to lose a billion bushels? And a billion bushels. So if we get that and you get below 2 billion bushels, then you've changed the game. So most of the guesstimates from that storm and its corn damage are somewhat less than that. Again, more tepid, 400 or 500. And the question's been asked, well, when will we actually find out what that is? Well, it turns out that it was in hindsight a lucky or wise move to not go out into those fields in August, because everything's changed there, at least in Iowa. But the NASS will go out and do objective yield surveys in the field in the September report coming out the first week in September. And so that'll be important. But even with that, unless it just looks dead and it's dying, they're probably not going to declare it all gone. They'll take a safe, cautious approach, which is wise. So, but by the time we get into October, November, then we'll know what we actually have. When we get to harvest dry down and from September 1 into October, that's when we'll probably know. So there's damage to corn.
Soybeans are also to be considered here, though.
Soybeans, they don't have the same stock situation as corn does. But for Iowa, soybeans, 9.3 million acres to be harvested. They lost 40% of that. That's somewhere over 4 million acres, 4.2, something like that. Let's say 4 million acres, and projected yield of 46 bushels per acre. They lose 10 bushel an acre on 4 million acres, 400,000 bushels, more than that. Then what you do, you take the soybean number that the USDA projected, record high, 4.425 billion bushels in the U.S., take 400 million off of that. Well, now it's down to 4. Anything more, you're getting a 3.9, 3.8. And then you're starting to get serious because now you take that balance sheet, you lose 400 million off of 610 million projected carryout. Well, now you're that's a big deal. Now you are enforcing rationing because the market didn't want to go that low. That's back to the old days of beans in the teens. So we're really focused on corn, but maybe the bigger risk, as big a risk to the market to changing the game, is probably on the soybeans from what happened in Iowa.
Now, in a moment, we want to have you pass along, based on all of this new USDA information and otherwise, your latest price projections associated with corn, beans, even wheat. But as another prelude to that, we're going to move away from crop destruction and to the demand side with your export update. And there are some enthusing developments there, to be certain, Dan.
Came in for the report for the week ending August the 6th. Corn exports 52.5 million bushels for that week. Strong amount. Now we're coming to the end of the market year. Looks like we're probably going to be a little bit short of the USDA's projection of 1.795 million bushels, but still we're finishing the old crop marketing year with 55 million bushels per week. That's pretty good. The big thing is something that makes our grain sorghum folks enthusiastically positive, is that for that week we had just under 19 million bushels of grain sorghum shipped. And a lot of times we're looking at 2 and 3 million bushels. Well, here, kaboom, 19 million. And looked at those charts, and you've got a good amount of purchases coming from China and unknown buyers. So we don't know, it could all be from China. 1.7 million metric tons for that. And that's about 40% of the way to what we have this year already. And we haven't got into that marketing year yet. So grain sorghum exports doing well. Grain sorghum basis reflecting that in a lot of locations, doing pretty good, doing very good actually. Although you look at central Kansas, looking at a Salina location, sideways, just a little bit lower in recent weeks. So it makes you wonder a little bit still, but as strong as at least by 30-40 cents from what we've seen anything since 2016. So export demand for wheat, doing okay. Our pace for wheat exports is as strong as any time since 2012. We're at the top of our range of where we've been all through all those years for both U.S. wheat and hard red winter wheat and hard red spring also. So a good start to exports. Lowering value U.S. dollar helps that. And for soybeans, soybean exports 41 million bushels week ending August 6th. And the USDA, maybe the bigger news is that the USDA came in and sharply raised their projection. We're projected to export 1.65 billion bushels of soybeans this year. They moved higher, the one for next year, to 2.125. So what is that? That's probably Chinese flooding and other. We talk about crop destruction. We have countryside destruction and logistical system destruction going on with the flooding over there. Should have mentioned so the USDA, in acknowledgement of this, again, 1.795 in this marketing year, billion bushels, raise that to 2.25 for the next one. Grain sorghum exports probably going to end up around 190, 200 by the time we're done. In this market year, raise it to 260 for the next one. Wheat exports, we're in essence, we're at 975 million bushels. The USDA raised that projection for the current marketing year starting June 1 by 25 million. So before this crop damage hit, there was a lot of positive on the export demand side. So that positive on the export demand side, coupled with these uncertainties on the production side now for corn and soybeans, is it adds a completely different spin on how we view the markets. If we wouldn't have had what we had in Iowa earlier this week, we'd basically be on the boat to find our harvest lows, maybe early if we're lucky, and go from there. Well, now I think it's fair to say that we've taken a step away from that direct heading for harvest low scenario that we were in before that storm hit.
And that is reflected in the aforementioned price probability projections that you put out in your weekly notes. So let's sum up on that, and to capsulize it, you're generally more optimistic than is the USDA number.
USDA came out and projected prices for the next marking year starting September 1 at $3.10. The way things are shaping up, to me, it looks like there's a higher possibility of being about 365 to 370. And if things really fall in terms of tight supplies, better demand, $3.85 to $4 for soybeans. The USDA projected 835. Probably, to be fair, probably something closer to 855 with acreage and yield cutbacks. Possibility if things really come out rougher than we're anticipating, 925 to 935. For wheat, the USDA projected 450 through a combination of crop problems to the north and better exports coming in. We could go 470, 490. So all those, I guess, call me Mr. Optimist, whatever, but there seem to be things lining up when you look at historical price relationships that are better than the USDA. One thing I'd finish on, when you look at current U.S. crop prices relative to our historical stocks to use ratios, what we've been doing, every one of these crops has taken a nosedive to the negative. We are way off of those relationships. And is that COVID-19? Is it pessimism about the economy? I'm not sure what all it is, but our prices all across the board have taken a fall off the cliff, lower move relative to where they've been in the past at these same levels of stocks to use. So what does that say? Well, it could say that we're too pessimistic right now by the time we get to the next 12 months, but we'll have to see.
Dan's notes worth a look, producers. He's posted those on the agmanager.info website, as he does weekly, agmanager.info. As always, Dan, we appreciate the time and the input.
Thank you, Eric. Take care.
Along with us each Friday is grain market economist Dan O'Brien of K-State Research and Extension. And you're tuned to Agriculture Today.